He looks so ugly.
An 8-year-old girl, full of life and dreams, brutally taken from the world she deserved. A crime so cruel, so inhumane, that it was later recorded for the world to see, but only after it was too late. Rica Rountree didn't die instantly. She suffered, slowly and painfully, at the hands of the very people who were supposed to protect her. And what makes her story even more devastating is that the signs were there, visible, clear, and undeniable. Yet, no one saved her. Rica Rountree was like any other little girl. She had a bright smile, an infectious laugh, and a spirit that could light up a room. She loved playing with her friends, being outside, and simply enjoying life as a child should. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, and she didn't come from a perfect home, but she deserved safety. She deserved love. But behind that innocent smile, Rica's life was a silent cry for help. The bruises, the sudden changes in behavior, the fear in her eyes, these were warnings that something was terribly wrong. And still, it wasn't enough to save her. Her abuser, Cynthia Baker, recorded moments of Rica's suffering, not in secret, but in full view, as if the abuse itself was a form of power, a twisted form of control. Rica was forced to eat soap, to sleep on the cold, hard floor, and to endure relentless violence at the hands of someone who saw her as disposable. And then, on one tragic day, the abuse went too far. A single, devastating blow to her small body would ultimately end her life. A life that should have been filled with laughter, school days, and dreams of the future, cut short by cruelty. But Rica wasn't killed in an instant. She suffered for hours, her tiny body breaking down from the injuries inflicted upon her. And while she lay there in agony, the very people responsible for her suffering did nothing to save her. This is more than just a story about a crime. It's a story about failure. The failure of a system meant to protect children. The failure of those who saw the warning signs and looked away. And, most tragically, the failure of the people who were supposed to love her. Who failed Rica Rountree? And why didn't anyone save her in time? If you're here, you're looking for answers to these very questions. Welcome to That Police Officer. Today, I'm taking you through the heartbreaking investigation of Rica's case, how the crime unfolded, the evidence that came to light, the trial, and whether justice was truly served. Rica's mother and Simmons faced significant personal challenges, including legal issues that culminated in her incarceration. These events led to a pivotal decision. In September 2016, custody of Rica was transferred to her father, Richard Rountree. This transition was intended to provide Rica with stability and care during a difficult period. Richard Rountree, then 31, was navigating the responsibilities of fatherhood under challenging conditions. Sharing his home in Normal, Illinois, with his girlfriend, Cynthia Baker, he sought to create a family environment for Rica. However, this household concealed dark undercurrents that would soon surface with devastating consequences. Cynthia Baker, aged 41, had a documented history with the Department of Children and Family Services, DCFS, including multiple investigations into allegations of child abuse dating back to 2002. Despite these red flags, she maintained a central role in the household, exerting significant influence over its dynamics. As Rica settled into her new living arrangement, the promise of a nurturing environment began to unravel. Subtle signs emerged, hinting at the turmoil beneath the surface. These early indicators, though perhaps overlooked at the time, would later be recognized as harbingers of the profound suffering that Rica endured. The interplay of these relationships, between a father striving to fulfill his parental duties, a partner with a troubling past, and a child caught in the crossfire, created a volatile environment. The walls of the Rountree household concealed a harrowing reality for young Rica Rountree. Within this environment, she endured relentless physical, emotional, and psychological torment that would ultimately lead to her tragic demise. Witnesses later recounted the severity of the abuse. Baker's own 7-year-old daughter testified to seeing her mother repeatedly kick Rica in the stomach, sometimes laughing as the child suffered. In one particularly cruel incident, Baker was seen dragging Rica by her neck into a room for punishment, showcasing a blatant disregard for the child's well-being. But let's leave all this for the trial section. The torment escalated to a fatal climax in January 2019. On that fateful day, Baker delivered a forceful kick to Rica's abdomen, causing a perforated intestine, a life-threatening injury. Despite the severity of her condition, Rica languished for hours without medical attention. By the time she was finally taken to the hospital, it was too late. The damage was irreversible. Dr. Charles Abrahamian, who performed emergency surgery, noted that he had only seen such injuries in cases of blunt force abdominal trauma. The deliberate and systematic nature of the abuse inflicted upon Rica paints a chilling picture of cruelty. The failure to promptly seek medical help after the fatal injury further underscores the profound neglect and callousness that pervaded her environment. This tragic sequence of events raises haunting questions about the unseen suffering that can occur behind closed doors and the critical importance of vigilance and intervention to protect vulnerable children. On January 25, 2019, Rica was found unresponsive in her bed and was rushed to the hospital. Medical professionals were immediately alarmed by the severity of her injuries, which were inconsistent with the explanations provided by her caregivers. The attending physicians observed multiple bruises and scars, raising concerns about possible ongoing abuse. Despite these red flags, the lack of concrete evidence made it challenging to take immediate action against those responsible. Rica Rountree and Cynthia Baker, Rica's father and his girlfriend, respectively, offered explanations that attempted to downplay the severity of the situation. They claimed that Rica's injuries resulted from accidental falls and typical childhood mishaps. Baker suggested that children often have accidents, implying that Rica's injuries were not out of the ordinary. These narratives were designed to deflect suspicion and portray the household as a normal environment where unfortunate accidents occurred. The absence of immediate arrests can be attributed to the insufficient proof at that early stage. While the medical findings were concerning, they did not conclusively point to intentional harm without further corroborating evidence. This gap allowed the perpetrators to maintain their facade temporarily, complicating the efforts of authorities to intervene promptly. As the investigation progressed, attention turned to potential witnesses who could shed light on Rica's living conditions. Other children residing in the home were interviewed, revealing a disturbing environment. One of Baker's daughters testified to witnessing her mother physically abuse Rica, including instances where Baker kicked Rica in the stomach. Additionally, school reports indicated that Rica often arrived with visible injuries, and educators had previously expressed concerns about her well-being. These accounts were instrumental in challenging the narratives provided by Rountree and Baker, gradually uncovering the truth behind Rica's suffering. The early stages of the investigation into Rica Rountree's death were marked by a complex interplay of deceptive explanations and a lack of immediate, irrefutable evidence. This period of uncertainty delayed justice and highlighted the challenges authorities face when confronted with concealed domestic abuse. The eventual testimonies of witnesses and the persistence of investigators were crucial in unraveling the truth, ensuring that Rica's story was heard and that those responsible were held accountable. The investigation into Rica's tragic death took a dramatic turn when authorities uncovered key video evidence on Cynthia Baker's phone. Until that moment, the case relied on medical findings, witness testimonies, and circumstantial evidence. But now, investigators had undeniable proof, recordings that captured the mistreatment Rica endured in her final months. The videos, recovered during a digital forensic examination, provided a first-hand account of the harsh conditions Rica faced. Investigators found footage of her standing for long periods as a form of punishment, visibly struggling under the weight of household items she was forced to hold. Other recordings showed moments where she was treated in a way that raised serious concerns about her safety and well-being. These videos painted a heartbreaking picture, one that went beyond mere suspicion and directly contradicted the explanations Baker and Rica Rountree had initially provided. This discovery became the turning point in the case. Prosecutors now had clear, visual evidence of what had happened behind closed doors. The explanations given earlier, that Rica's injuries were accidental, no longer held weight. The truth was laid bare, and the gravity of what she had endured was impossible to ignore. When these recordings were presented in court, the reaction was immediate. Jurors and legal professionals, many of whom had handled difficult cases before, struggled to remain composed. The emotional impact of seeing the evidence firsthand left an undeniable mark on everyone in the courtroom. Rica's story, once told through second-hand accounts, was now being revealed through unfiltered documentation, ensuring that her suffering would not be dismissed or overlooked. These videos ultimately played a crucial role in the case, solidifying the prosecution's argument and leaving no doubt about the mistreatment Rica had faced. They served as a powerful reminder of the importance of intervention in cases of suspected abuse, because for Rica, justice came too late. Cynthia Baker's arrest for first-degree murder stemmed from her direct involvement in Rica's death. Evidence, including the harrowing video footage, documented Baker's abusive actions towards Rica, such as forcing her to stand for prolonged periods while holding heavy cans and physically assaulting her. These actions indicated a deep-seated need for control and dominance over the child. Psychological analyses suggest that Baker's behavior was driven by a desire to assert power within the household, possibly exacerbated by jealousy towards Rica's relationship with her father. This dynamic may have fueled Baker's abusive conduct. Rica Rountree's role in the abuse presents a troubling picture of complicity. While he may not have actively inflicted harm, Rountree failed to protect his daughter from the ongoing abuse. Evidence showed that he was present during instances of abuse and, at times, recorded these events. This passivity, coupled with his apparent indifference, categorized him as a passive enabler. Rountree's actions, or lack thereof, contributed to the perpetuation of the abusive environment that ultimately led to Rica's death. He pleaded guilty to child endangerment and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. The household dynamics extended beyond the immediate family. Other children residing in the home, including Baker's biological children, were implicated in the abuse. Testimonies revealed that Baker's young daughter witnessed and, at times, participated in the abuse of Rica. This involvement suggests a normalization of abusive behaviors within the household, potentially learned or coerced. However, the extent to which these children were victims themselves remains complex. While they may have been exposed to or involved in abusive acts, it's unclear whether they were also subjected to abuse or were active participants. The lack of comprehensive information on their experiences leaves room for further investigation into their roles and victimization within this tragic scenario. In summary, the abuse and eventual death of Rica Rountree were the results of a toxic interplay of control, jealousy, and systemic power abuses within a fractured family structure. Cynthia Baker's direct actions, Rica Rountree's neglectful oversight, and the involvement of other children in the home paint a grim picture of a household where abusive behaviors were both learned and ignored. This case underscores the critical need for vigilance and intervention in environments where such dynamics are present to prevent the perpetuation of abuse across generations. The trial of Cynthia Baker for the murder of her 8-year-old stepdaughter, Rica Rountree, was a harrowing journey into the depths of familial betrayal and cruelty. Prosecutors meticulously unveiled the extent of Rica's suffering, presenting compelling evidence that left an indelible mark on all who witnessed it. Central to the prosecution's case were videos recovered from Baker's cell phone, which graphically depicted the abuse Rica endured. One such video showed Baker kneeing Rica in the back and slamming her head against a wall, while other family members remained indifferent. These videos, along with testimonies detailing over 50 scars and marks found on Rica's body, painted a grim picture of her daily reality. Assistant State's Attorney Erica Reynolds described the abuse as unthinkable, highlighting that for Rica, such torment was tragically routine. The defense did not contest the abuse, but argued that the evidence did not conclusively prove that Baker's actions directly caused Rica's death. On November 19, 2020, after deliberations, Cynthia Baker was convicted on multiple charges, including first-degree murder, aggravated battery, endangering the life of a child, and domestic battery. During sentencing, Judge Casey Costigan referred to Baker's actions as pure evil and demented, acknowledging the profound impact of the case on all involved. Baker was subsequently sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In a poignant moment, Rica's mother and Simmons addressed Baker, stating, "You beat and killed my daughter. Please accept that and let it go because I have." Rica's father pleaded guilty to child endangerment for his role in the abuse. Despite being present during instances of abuse and even recording some, he failed to intervene or protect his daughter. Rountree was sentenced to 8 years in prison, a term that many felt was insufficient given the gravity of his neglect. The trial and subsequent sentencing of Cynthia Baker and Richard Rountree shed light on the profound failures within a family structure meant to provide love and protection. While justice was served in terms of legal accountability, the emotional and psychological scars left on Rica and her surviving family members are enduring reminders of the need for vigilance and intervention in cases of suspected child abuse. Rica Rountree's tragic death is a painful reminder of the warning signs that were ignored by teachers, neighbors, and child services. Despite noticing the physical and emotional signs of abuse, no one took the necessary steps to intervene. Rica's teachers observed her withdrawing, her peers saw her as distant, and neighbors reported concerning behavior. However, the system failed to act. Child services conducted visits, but didn't fully uncover the depth of the abuse. The lack of a comprehensive investigation allowed the cycle of violence to continue unchecked, ultimately leading to her death. Rica's case reflects a broader failure in child protection systems, where similar cases of abuse often go unnoticed or are mishandled, leaving vulnerable children at risk. Despite advancements in awareness and protection, children like Rica continue to fall through the cracks. Her short life, filled with potential, was tragically cut short, serving as a stark reminder of the urgent need for vigilance, timely intervention, and accountability. Rica's story must not be forgotten, and her death must drive lasting change to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future.